Namaskar, everyone. It's a great honor for me, a great pleasure for me to introduce Smriti Irani ji, who actually doesn't need any introduction. And with someone so eloquent, I'm not going to give any pearls of wisdom before she starts. The interest in correcting perceptions or narrative for me personally started in 1998 when I moved to the US. This was a fairly decent business school, and some of my classmates asked me if I owned a pet elephant that took me to school. So since then, the view that's formed on India. I live in Singapore now. The view that's formed in India through New York Times and Slumdog Millionaire is quite broken. Opinion pieces and fiction are forming the narrative of India outside and sometimes even within, which is why we have Tathya today. And and Smriti ji, somebody that has been specifically targeted and maligned. So we thought nobody better than her to respond to an event that is around correcting narratives in media, in governance, in diplomacy, and what have you. In line with the specific ministry she's heading right now, I've worn a true blue traditional kurta. But Smriti ji, personal joy for me, great honor for all of us to invite you to say a few words and open Tathya 2021. Over to you, Smriti ji.
I have the greatest privilege of being on a platform which delves into the real truth. Spinning of narratives is not the entitlement of the few who feel that politics or policies can be ridden on that path of untruth. I'm grateful that Team Tathya today inaugurates this platform for deliberation based on facts, and it is those facts that will become the fulcrum of policies that will help us build a new India. In his opening remarks, it was said that I have been at the receiving end of many untruths, at the receiving end of many false narratives. But I think that my journey has been such that I have been tested through fire, and blessedly, I have escaped that untruth unscathed. The intention with which I come on this platform today is to have an honest conversation. And I'm hopeful that everybody who comes onto this platform with Tathyas indulges in that journey, because ours is a civilization that has deliberated on issues for centuries. Ours is a society which has encouraged debate. Ours is a society that has thrived on informed conversations. So here's looking forward to a talk which will help as much as me as those who are listening to arrive at better positions, to arrive at more informed decisions. So I've been told by Anurag that I can go on for 5 minutes. I think Anurag mistakes me for one of those politicians who've been given a mic and who can endlessly chatter. I'm somebody who's focused on particular issues, and if I need to underline the issues on which possibly we will want to engage on, the first is the impact of narratives. Are those impacts only cultural? Are those impacts only societal? Or is there an economic agenda behind such narratives as well? The second topic, which is close to my heart, which I've requested Anurag to possibly delve into, is the so called phrase of women's empowerment. Now, my position is this, that too often we use that phrase to engage on issues with regards to gender. But we need to recognize that on an international matrix, when women's empowerment is judged, it is judged from the prism of economics and politics. Power sharing, or for that matter, sharing of revenue, becomes central to that narrative. And the one aspect that gets left behind is the cultural aspect of a woman's journey, or for that matter, the cultural impact on society with regards to a fallout on gender. So, given the complexities of a life of a woman, or for that matter, the complexities of a dynamic society such as ours, which is so diverse, where do we totally stand on the narrative of women empowerment, and how is data relatable to this phrase? So, I'm looking forward to, in fact, narratives, or for that matter, deliberations that emanate even from this a very essential conversation that needs to be had. Because if you look at Indian politics today, there has been a tectonic shift as to how women are perceived by administrators and policymakers. The Prime Minister has given the clarion call that now India is at the cusp of human history where we will have not just women's development, but essentially to be a strong nation, we need to ensure women-led development. So how does an Atmanirbhar Bharat get served by a self-reliant Indian woman? And what does data tell us about it? What are the narratives around it? I'm hopeful that on Tathya, this is also an aspect that can be deliberated.
Wonderful, Smriti ji. Such a pleasure again, honor again having you. Ji, if I may, in your opening remarks, you talked about the data lens and why data might not be serving our agenda. Would you mind elaborating on that for the audience?
I don't think, Anurag, it's about data serving our agenda. I think it's more about data serving the truth. And when it comes to women's issues, I think one of the greatest challenges when we look at international indices, for instance, the Gender Inequality Index, or for that matter, the Gender Development Index, where international conversations emanate about the potential of how India's policymakers or administrators are serving the cause of women in India. One of the greatest challenges that I have seen in my 1.5 years as a minister is that very old data sets are used. And hence, as a nation, when we think that we have done much progressively on issues with regards to women in education, in health, in financial services, the data doesn't reflect that reality. The other aspect is that there is a presumption that all data sets are applicable to all nations unilaterally. And the diversity or the complexity of a nation does not get reflected in that data. The other assumption is that all data available is the right data. And I think that I would like to add to it by saying that if I look at only how women are politically measured on such indices, they are measured from their participation, let's say, in parliament. For that matter, there is an addition of women being represented in state assemblies. But there is a third layer in India where we have 1.2 million women serving in our panchayats. Now, they don't find a reflection in international data sets. Given the fact that they are equally a vibrant contributor to our democracy, given the fact that with the devolution of enhanced funds from the center to states, and especially for the urban and rural infrastructure, looking at the number of women serving at the grassroots level, if we start having that number getting reflected in those indices, can you imagine the jump that India will see? The other instance is access to financial services and credit for women. In Mudra, or for that matter, Stand Up India, today we have over 10 crore female beneficiaries across all these financial services schemes of Government of India. That volume does not get reflected internationally. So when we had the pandemic, and I was in conversation with UN Women, the New York headquarters, I said that you need to recognize that for the first time, Prime Minister Modi has availed to at least 41 crore citizens banking facilities. These are people who were unbanked before that. But in the women's sphere, we had 28% of women in our country having banking facilities till 2014. That number doubled. And Jan Dhan Yojana, imagine now, has ensured that 22 crore women, that is 220 million women now have a bank account courtesy the Modi regime. And it is under that space that we saw cash transfers happen worth 30,000 crores. People in New York were surprised by the whole volume of the impact of the administration. But those data sets were not readily available there. So I think that the ask I have of Tathya 2021 is to not look at data sets only from the perspective of a narrative which is about journalism, but also extend it to human development indices, or for that matter, the contribution that the Prime Minister has done on these issues. So be it education, be it health, be it women's issues. I think that you will serve the cause of data well when these conversations happen. I think not, because this is, like I said, one of the greatest aspects that goes untouched. You see, it serves a lot of interests well. And if you permit, while we are recording, let me just add to when I spoke about women's issues or the human development index issue and data. So from my own experience in WCD, which is the Women and Child Development Ministry, one of the most fascinating data that I challenged as minister in the realm of nutrition was the narrative that malnourished children in our country, in fact, can be equated to sub-Saharan Africa. And when I became minister, I said that give me the data for the severely acutely malnourished children in our country. Everybody pulled out data from the internet and said that, well, there are approximately 8 million such kids in the country. I said, how can you work on an approximation? Give me specific state-wise data. We wrote to every state. And why am I saying this? Is because there is a lot of budgetary allocation, because no state or no government would want such kind of a crisis to erupt in a nation such as ours, especially. And when I said that if I want to put in funds, I want to see where the problem areas are. So give me a confirmation on the number so that I can have adequate allocation and financial measures to support the solution. You'd be shocked. From 8 million, we went down to an approximate 1 million in just one communication.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Which means that allocation, and many a times people say, "Aap budget zyada kyun nahi maang rahe?" This is the taxpayers' money. So if I have to use it prudently, I need to be pragmatic enough to have data sets available to me which are real, and then ensure that the taxpayers' money goes to people who genuinely need it. So right now in the ministry, we are in a process to ensure that now states go beyond that approximation. And I say, does your district collector or your chief medical officer get involved in determining if a child is severely acutely malnourished? They said no. So I said, who measures? So now we've started from January a whole nationwide campaign to say, if you have to declare a child severely acutely malnourished, that is a medical procedure. So now we've asked for specifics, and I'm sure that the numbers will go down further, and then we will have a specific number, a child who can get that service and support that the family so needs to help them come out of that state of malnourishment. Now, another data point, let me say this. Between the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Women and Child Development, we both service girls who are out of school. The competition was that school department always says nobody's dropping out. But the children's department always say a lot of people are dropping out. Why? Because the allocation was in the school division for people not to drop out. And in the children's division was to support kids who drop out. So when I started saying, why don't you correlate the data sets? In one district, I can't have school saying nobody's out of school, but my division saying that 20 kids are out of school. When we correlated that data set, we suddenly had from 17 lakh kids, it going down again to 9 lakhs. So I think that from these perspectives, these conversations are essential from a data perspective because they affect not only policy, they affect administrative approach, but more so they affect fiscal spending. So I'm hopeful that on your platform, issues beyond journalism can get addressed.
Absolutely, ma'am. That's a commitment I am making to you. In fact, I feel so energized as the father of a daughter myself. I feel so energized that we're taking this direction and getting Indian women their fair due. I'm almost ashamed that this is something I didn't know myself.
No, and I think, Anurag, why people like you who are so well informed would not know this, and I would not belie this, would not know this because there is a lot of money in spinning the false narrative. Like I said, that entire narrative then rests on allocation, on leakages. So the minute you try to ensure that there is a direct cash transfer into the account of the beneficiary, when you get these data sets, I think that's when leakages also stop. So the narrative sustains, and you will not find the correct data internationally or any other social media platform because it helps those people to sustain the false narrative. For instance, a company will come and give you a quick fix for a severely acutely malnourished child and say, let the government spend, let's say, 100 rupees on one packet so that this child will have a quick fix and I'll give you a certificate that all is well with India. But what they will not tell our people is that a drumstick soup is much more effective, which is made, let's say, in $5. So I think that is why these kind of data sets or these kind of conversations do not take place, because it is that status quo that will get shaken up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I think the only way to sort out imbalanced incentives which get people to push themselves and the system in lopsided ways is to actually put tathya or facts or truth out there. So I'm so glad, I'm so glad we had this conversation, and that you're offering your ministry to be put under greater scrutiny than it has been in the past.
Happy to.
On. And if we could just have the honor of you formally declaring Tathya 2021 open. And again, like I said, I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for being here. The direction you've set for us, the quick thing on women, there's a small secret I'd like to let you in. When we were deliberating about setting this up, this was in the end of 2019, there was an event that you spoke of, and this is something perhaps you also don't know. This was at the Bloomberg conference in Bombay, where you happened to mention that as a woman, you feel as safe in India as you do in New York. 1 hour in, there was this whole narrative being set out from Lutyens' news studios, comparing it to the whole Bombay ko Shanghai banayenge movement. Luckily, we had data at that point of time to actually prove that the per capita crimes against women were far lesser in India than in New York City, New York State, or the US in general.
Yes.
That was one of the reasons which actually encouraged us to say ki haan yaar, is idea mein dum hai. We need to stop painting us Indian men black, especially when we have data for it. So personally, it's an honor for me.
All Indian men are perfect, but I'm grateful that they accept their flaws. But I'll not have them flogged internationally for an issue which is topical to every nation. So yes, I support you on that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, madam. And if you could just declare the event open, that would be a great honor for us.
It is my absolute privilege, and with pride, I announce that Tathya 2021 be open.
Thanks, everyone. Stay tuned for the panels, for the convocation. We have Suresh Prabhuji coming in, a host of speakers. Thank you, madam, again, or as we say, Dhanyosmi, for gracing this event. We look forward to your interaction, your guidance in the future as well. Dhanyosmi.
Thank you.